let me do that kind of stuff. Oh, perfect. Oh, we are live. Okay, perfect. All right. So, excellent. Welcome. We will get started right now. I appreciate everybody's patience. So, I apparently can't put this into presenter mode, but before we get started, I always throw this out there. We are on lunch. We're not putting this down under general time. You're here because you want to learn. So, if you want to work a little extra, come in a little earlier, come in and stay a little later, that's up to you. So what I'm going to do is go over the presentation I gave in Toronto for Data Day. It's techniques for data-driven design analysis. Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm an architect with DLR Group. I'm kind of a design technologist. I'm project architect by day, data creator by night. I'm co-founder of Data Streams. It was one of the first PDG grants here at DLR Group that was at least initially moved forward. And then I'm also CEO and founder of Architect Machines, the digital asset management company. So I started that about 7 years ago. And so it's basically just taking all the data that's being created and thinking of it as a digital asset as opposed to just something that sits on a server. So I've got like a 2 terabyte drive at home that has all my models and scripts, and I've been putting that up online for people to use. So, but let me jump through this here. Design professionals will need to have a basic understanding of what data means for them if they are to succeed. So that's all you need to know about me. That's kind of my calling card. Data is kind of my thing. Oh, can you also reach into my bag there? And I've got a handout. So this is 6 things we're going to go over today. Real quick on data strategy, and then I'm going to go through 4 kind of highly technical examples. And then we'll finish off with data and AI. But before we do that, I created a little promo video. I'm sorry to the folks at home that aren't able to hear this. We're going to find out real quick how well the volume works. So you may need to mute the audio coming from us in just a moment. So what I did was create a promo video for my session at Data Day, and just kind of give you a little idea of what it's kind of a day in the life of. So that's how I started off the presentation in Toronto. So data strategy is something I take pretty serious, as you can tell. So you never really want to follow somebody that kind of takes it halfway, looks at the edge and blinks. You're really looking for that person that's right between passionate and obsessive. I think that's kind of right where I'm at. So that's always good. So we'll talk about the why of data strategy and really discovering the purpose of all of this data that we're creating, collecting, validating, measuring, and then asking the question, does this fit in our culture? Is everyone on board with this, right? Is this something that everybody is comfortable with? You don't have to be a daily user of it. You don't have to learn computer programming languages. Just some people want to see this at a distance. Some people want to see it closer, and some people want to be hands-on. there's obviously business value of data and return on investment. I've always said if it makes dollars, it makes sense. So there's a little pun there. But it's really the ability to tap into that vast value chain that is often overlooked in the AECO industry. Data management, that's kind of a subset of data strategy. Really just where are all the gateways, where are all the districts, where do I save this stuff to? That's stuff we can handle. And the things we're after are performance, more critically, key performance indicators. So ultimately, you'll need to show that your strategy is creating higher performance levels. And the best way to prove and measure that is to track performance and the contributions of that data. And it's always being developed on, right? There's always process improvement. So everything I show you is never ever the completed thing, but it's the right tool for the right task at the right time. And it can always be improved. So, well, yeah, at the end, you guys already have this because it's on the servers, but anything else, of course, is on ARC machines. I will not be giving away any tablets at this session. I already gave them all away, but I reached out to Amazon and they were able to give away a couple tablets and Amazon Echoes. And the reason for that is you'll see it at the end of the presentation here. So I get asked this question a couple times. What are some examples you draw inspiration from? And so not to get too nerdy, but fictional dashboards, right? So looking at even was it about 8 years ago in 2008, the first Iron Man came out. Really a lot of inspirational interfaces and things of that nature. And then that evolved and that process got better. And I found it interesting of how, again, it's a fictional character, was able to collect all that data and broadcast it to himself and have instant feedback. And I was thinking, well, why don't we apply that to architecture? Like, we're not doing that now, and we really need to. So I created a couple of my own suits of armor, if you will, a couple dashboards. We're going to go over 4 of these today, but by no means is this all of them. So the question then becomes, can you chew bubblegum and walk at the same time? There's a lot of different moving parts to this, so don't feel overwhelmed by it. You got me in your corner going to bat for you. So I'm going to go over the first dashboard, and then it kind of is self-explanatory after that. I'm going to look over the anatomy here. This helps if I'm in a presenter view. Oops, let me try. Oh, perfect. All right. Oh, because it's connected to that. So if I click, I should be able to go, right? Hey, sweet. Hey, so for those of you at home, you're seeing a little bit different screen, but more or less the same thing. So a way to break out a building is kind of get kind of a heat map, if you will, of what's going on in the building. You've got private offices, open offices in this example, restrooms, corridors. So you're looking at analysis of the rooms. And then those rooms are compartmentalized into departments, right? So, and then we can look at room adjacencies, very beautiful diagram. And this is basically telling me adjacencies of departments to rooms, so on and so forth. This one I like the best. This one I kind of invented about 2 years ago. It's basically tells me if I'm winning or losing, right? So this tells me if I'm meeting the client's program or if I'm not. And this is live from the Revit model. So basically it's saying I've got 4 rooms right now that are too small, and I've got 5 rooms that are too large. And then the examples down below the pie charts are basically telling me if I'm winning or losing. Is the percentage of the fail total more overwhelming here? In this case, no. There's just a small slice of the pie that's a fail. And that could be plus or minus 10%. So if I have a janitor's closet that's 56 square feet and I accounted for 50, it's going to fail. Is that a big deal? Probably not. I think you're always going to have some fails. And then looking at the level analysis by floor plan, looking at the rooms at the same time, and then I've created kind of another 3D example of that information. So let's do a demo here. Let's see if it blows up or not. It's always good. Interesting. So I'll get to this one. So I actually have to do a little bit of inception, if you will. Let's see if I can get this going. So a example of that. Interesting. Okay. So let's go this. All right, let's go ahead and launch Dynamo. Luckily for the video, I get to edit all this stuff out. So as it starts to load. Okay, so let's grab our checker information here. So live in Revit, as I begin to change this, let's say something changes, because that never happens with a client, right? So let's say this changed down to 2200. So watch this. Sorry, this pass and this pass right there. Boom, it tells me it fails, right? So, and that's nice, but it's really sometimes hard to see that graphically. We're still in kind of an Excel spreadsheet format here, and it's if I ask, this might be an easy question, but if I ask how many fails there were, you could probably look at the screen and say, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, great. But if that was a number that was always calculated, that'd be a little bit easier, because this only has approximately, I mean, what have we got there? 20 rooms. Sometimes we'll work on projects that have 600 rooms, so on and so forth. So, so what I want to do is actually grab program area and area no units. These are this column and this column are identical, but I've dropped the feet squared, meter squared, whatever you're trying to use as basically part of an outline there. I'm going to hit run, and in theory, should pop that up. Excellent. So let's do this one more time here. I'm going to detach these real quick, produce an error, reset this. And so if you notice, that went blank for just a second. And I do have some area that's too big as a fail. But if I were to change this to closer match what I'm working with in the model, and I hit run, now I have 2 passes, right? And so that's pretty interesting, because then I can tie that back to that dashboard, right? And I can start to say, I bet I don't have it connected right now, but, oh, no, I do. Okay, so there's my 6 fails right there that are too large, right? So I can start to break down and say, okay, where are those? 2 of them are in that private office. And if I were to look a little bit further, one of them is on level 1. 2 of them are on level 2. And so 3 of them are on level 3. I'm able to start to pinpoint that data, if you will, and start to basically make a better piece of architecture because of it. I can go in and say, just tell me everything about private office, tell me everything about open office, tell me everything about whatever the next room is. And then it basically describes back to me, reads back to me for every floor. I have 3 floors in this. I've got 4 of these open offices that make up this portion of the floor plan, and so on and so forth. It tells me the adjacencies, whether I'm winning and losing. Right? I'm able to publish that to the web, create an embed code. We could go through how to set up like a default gateway and all kinds of cool technical stuff, but we won't. For reasons of it's kind of boring. So I kind of already did this already, but I can basically now send this, publish this information to the web. We can share this with clients. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's just, you can be your own worst enemy sometimes, but you get all the same functionality with Power BI that you would with the desktop app. And so you can send this to the client, have them peruse it, check it, and say, okay, I want to change this, I want to change that about it. So just a little bit better tool to use that with. So that's the end of that one. So we are on a bit of a time crunch. So the question then becomes, what's important to your project success? Could be anything, and it could change from client to client, right? Because every client's going to be a little bit different, even on if it's the same project over and over again, because they always want to improve too, right? So you basically have to ask that question, and then that's how you make your dashboard, right? Because you don't want to add superfluous information that you've never used. You always want to find the minimal viable product for that dashboard. So cost estimating. Let's see if I can get logged into this. Of course, it won't work.
Can I ask a question? Quick?
Absolutely.
So right now you're saying it's either pass or fail. That's very black and white.
Mm-hmm.
Is there room for sort of a gray area?
That is up to you. So right now, I can set another variable that essentially says, so right now it's plus or minus 10%, so 0.9 and 1.1. So if it's too small, 0.9 times the value. But I can also say negate any of those fails that are less than 100 square feet, because plus or minus 10% is, again, under 100 square feet. It's arguably indiscernible, right?
Okay, so
So
you can adjust that.
absolutely, and we can go. Let's do this, and then you're going to see how technical and awesome it can get. So we actually use this at the interview level for a project that kind of immediately had budget concerns. So everybody's been on one of those, right? At least 10 a year. And so we were able to get at least the base representation of the model and then grab that information and bring it into Dynamo. And for those listening at home, if Des Moines is called in, we actually had our marketing guy, Nick Hansen, operate this. Nick is not an architect. He's not an engineer. He's the marketing guy. So he's either really, really smart or just a cool, awesome dude. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these colors. I'm going to say the client chose, instead of the Cadillac option, which is the red that you see up there, they can't afford it. We need to change that. So we're going to take that from $10 a square foot down to $8. It's always grabbing this information live from Revit, and then it basically just multiplies those two across and gives me that number. So this, as soon as I hit save, kind of hands off, the screen will turn blue, right? So now the client can also visualize the impact of their decision that just happened, right? That's huge. If I remember correctly, this was a deciding factor for the client. They said, "This is incredible. You guys always bring it when you interview for a project with us." So just terribly fascinating.
Did you get the project?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's your winning work, right? So that's incredible. So flip, flip, flip. You can change all these things out. Let's just change them all red, just so we can see the impact. So, and that's cool to a point. But if we were to, so we got them all red, and it's pretty much live feedback. I probably don't have this one hooked up because permissions and who knows. Oh, it is hooked up. Okay, so instead of seeing it just visually, what their decisions are impacting, it's dorm rooms and corridors in this instance, we can actually filter that down just a little bit further and say, okay, here's the option A project cost for the dorm rooms. If you were to take that square footage, multiply it by our number, you get that 1.51 million number. So if we go back here, just a second here, I need that Excel file. And now we start to maybe consider the budget a little bit more frugally. Let's go ahead and hit save here and go to our second and third tier options. Come up here, let me click off. So we were in the 2.52 range for interior finishes, but now we're in the 1.71, bringing a grand total of $500,000 in savings. This is at the interview level, right? So these are still architect numbers, right? These aren't CM numbers, but we're able to develop this tool. It's actually several tools, but this tool and move it forward and improve it. So once we start getting concrete numbers, door numbers, we're actually able to kind of poke around in here and decipher how much of that spec, if you will, that spec section is affecting the total cost. In this case, doors is about $12K of the project, finishes being one of the largest. There's some concrete renovation work. There's a little bit of roofing to the project. So just fascinating. If I wanted to isolate just what the roofing is, I can see I've got 23K, and that's the option that shows me. Break down a little bit further and see what options are affected by that. So take that back out, and we're good.
Can we take a look at the diagram again for your 3D?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so it seems to me like not only is it good in presentation or interview, but like we're in programming right now on a project.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be great to bring to a meeting, a programming meeting, and describe to the client, here are the alternatives?
That's what we're doing. Yeah, this is all here. Yeah, yeah. So if you have somebody that can operate it, or I can do this remotely, because I'm actually remoting in right now to my Des Moines computer. So it is possible. Like I said, I'm kind of being in Inception right now. If you can kind of see, I actually have 2 taskbars. So yeah, answer your question. Yeah.
We're doing early design work and something other than Revit. Is this?
Yeah, we can look out for Rhino and Grasshopper and SketchUp, good SketchUp. Well, hold on. Raise hands for SketchUp users. Oh no. Okay, so this is going to be a different animal. Yeah, there's probably a way, but I own my own SketchUp license, so it is a valuable tool, but it's not something that I feel maybe has this kind of technical capacity. I can do it another way. I can use.
SketchUp is one itself as well for pulling data in a way you're pulling data.
Right.
It's odd to me actually there aren't better plugins for that because it's just such a ubiquitous program otherwise.
There are, and what I'm going to try and get into for my next Dynamo Next episode is actually have the guys from Flux come in, and so we'll see how to kind of grab that information out of a SketchUp model. We might not be able to pull this exact information, but we should be able to get kind of a database backbone established for SketchUp models. So
This would be really, really useful.
yep. Okay, so
Hey, Ryan, before you continue, quick question for you.
okay.
You're talking about making it available as well for the clients, say they wanted to mess with the dashboards themselves and just see what the numbers are if they were to just plug in, kind of plug and play.
Yeah.
But they don't have access to that Excel sheet and stuff like that. Can you publish like a dashboard that they can adjust to what they think suits them best and then shoot that back to us? And
Okay, so interesting question because then it goes back to the tail wagging the dog. Do we want them? Who's in control of the model? Who's in control of the numbers? We can absolutely give them a live feed from the Excel file. We can just set up basically a network gateway for them to do that. But we also kind of want to maybe keep an eye on them a little bit to make sure that they're getting truthful numbers, if you will, because then they can start throwing in any numbers they want, and that has real impact. And so that has real impact on design. So we need to be careful how we allow that, if you will, because as the architect and designer, I want to be able to control that. I want to make sure that the source I'm getting that from, whether it's RS means or the CM that we bring on board, I want to make sure that we're at least in the knowledge of that, and if not in the control of that. So hopefully that answers your question.
yes, it did. Thanks.
Cool. Okay, so back to the presentation real quick. So we've gone through that one. We went through the demo of that. I'm trying to go as fast as I can here without going too fast. So design options. How many design options you guys typically do for a client? 3? The 3, right? The 3, right? Okay.
5.
5. Okay, 5. Hey, that's great. How about 1.8 quadrillion? Right?
Thank you.
No? Okay, what if you didn't have to model it? That'd be fantastic, right? So, good, I got your attention. So, so here's a script that I wrote for the Africa team. They've done a wonderful job. They've taken and run with it. I'm one person at DLR Group. I had to think for a second. One person at DLR Group that has a license to Autodesk Fractal. So basically, it's kind of a machine learning algorithm. I can take that Dynamo script and throw it up on the computer and let the computer do computation. So, right, that's the fun part of it. It can basically go through every single possible iteration that I will ever come up with in 5,000 lifetimes, right? So it will run through every single floor-to-floor height, number of floors, and pointing at the screen for those at home, number of floors in the hotel. I control all these variables. So in other words, if I want to modify, let me reconnect to the server real quick. If I want to adjust the number of floors in commercial, there it goes. By the way, the parking garage in the back has no parameters tied to it. It basically responds to the square footage because the more floor space you add, the more people you add, the more cars you add. So let's add some more towers here. Notice I'm not modeling. I'm basically just giving it a set of instructions to say, hey, I need more of this or I need less of that. Let's see, what else do we got here? Give me a total variation of 3 or 4. This comes into play later on in the presentation as I get back. So let's just flip through all these different iterations, probably faster than I could ever model these. So we're still in the programming stage, right? So we're still in the SketchUp world of massing. We just want to understand the mass of the building and the square footage and how much that impacts the project moving forward, right? So we'll just move. And so this is actually a campus in a location yet to be determined. So we grab that information. Do I have that dashboard open? Probably not. Let's open it up real quick. So yeah, that's a lot.
No, but I mean, we're about to actually start a project like that where we're looking at every kind of possibility, tall buildings, short buildings, squat buildings.
You want to see them all, right?
All different land uses.
Charles is very interested in that because, what if we showed them, we'll get to that. We'll get to why Charles is going to like this. So I have a bazillion. So I've actually narrowed down the Excel spreadsheet here. I took it down to 6,500 options. Autodesk actually called me and said, hey, we need you to stop using Fractal. You're taking up all of our stuff. It looks like you have 1.8 quadrillion. Yeah, we need you to stop. So it was great. It was good to get a call from them. So, and then of course they called in on the next Dynamo Next episode. So, and then I took that 6,500 and just chopped it down to about 252. So there's 252 different iterations here. And basically what I want to say is I have height restrictions, right? That's a common simple thing that we can do. So I can't go over 120 feet, right? So, okay, so 136, 147, you're out of the game. I can look and see what I have left. Fantastic. I filtered that selection. Client says, I need at least 22,000 square feet of office space. So let's narrow it down. I still have one office option with 9 hotel options and 1 commercial option that fits that criteria. My list got a little shorter, right? So now maybe we actually show this to the client. Now that we've refined that search, this is already, in a way, predetermining what that mass is going to be without us having to constantly think about mass and form and square footage and doing all this hard stuff that the human brain isn't necessarily great geared at. I want you guys to design, right? That's what your dream is, I hope. It's not to do this stuff, just leave this stuff to me. This gives you all kinds of time to design this particular series of outputs, right? So I've got almost 15,000 commercial square feet. It has 1 floor commercial, 17,600 hotel square footage, 8 floors of office. You get the idea, right? And these are all 120 feet tall. Fantastic. So we can just narrow that down a little bit more. There's your option. Go model it, right? It's the only possible option that meets these certain criteria. How much time would you spend trying to find that solution if you didn't just pick it from the cloud, if you will, right?
Can we go the other direction? Can you start with the massing that you like, and then this will figure out all of the variations of what's inside it?
I love a good challenge. That is an awesome idea. Can you? So the question was, can you go the other way instead of, I guess, setting the parameters and start with the massing and work backwards? I don't see why you couldn't, because give me your model, right? And then I would basically slice through it and put the floors in. And you wouldn't even have to put levels in. I would put those in and basically CAT scan those in, if you will, and it's going to give me a predetermined total. So I actually like that idea, because then, yeah.
That's useful a lot for housing, because a lot of times we start out and the bulk is sort of predetermined. Usually the developer wants to build it out completely. And there's small variation within that, but then you figure out all of the various configurations of units for the business side.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. Okay, cool. Let's go on to the last one here. Where am I at in the PowerPoint? That one. Load calc. So, some people like this, and sometimes I don't like to admit this, but I'm actually, my background is in engineering. I have a degree in, yeah. So I'm actually a licensed architect in several states, but my background is got an engineering degree when I was 19. So should have stuck with that instead of going into architecture, right? So, but I've always been interested in making it a little bit easier on our engineers. So this one's geared for mechanical engineers. So kind of back in the day doing like train trace. So sorry, some eyes are probably going to glaze over, but this is terribly fascinating. So back in the day, doing train trace reports. So this isn't meant to supplant or replace train trace. You still need to do that. But what our engineers are doing are grabbing those glazing values, the engineering checks, cooling load, heating load, stuff that's already kind of in the Rev model that we can check and verify to make sure it's quality data. We can extract that and put that into a pretty decent dashboard. Of course, I closed the model already. Tell you what, we are kind of cutting in on time. I will just run through it maybe without the model. You all believe me that I can do it right by now? Okay, good. It might take longer to open that than maybe worth. So, so let's take a look at this information. So pulling from that Revit model, as the architect adds, moves walls and adds windows, and it affects mechanical load constantly. And this is why engineers, they're not lazy. They are just, and they're not procrastinators. They just want to make sure that they're not duplicating work. They don't want to have to do this every week because the ceilings changed and the new skylights got put in. But if they could do maybe a weekly check and kind of check in on this and say, okay, hit refresh, see my new totals. Boy, that's a lot of glazing on the north. Where's all that coming from? I hit maybe check an assembly area. That's where a lot of it's coming from, right? So I can just kind of pile through here and at a 7-second glance, right? This is hours worth of work. At a 7-second glance, I can see the 3 assembly rooms, what their area is, the glazing basically of the north of those combined. I can actually separate that out to individual assembly areas.
So question.
Okay.
I think I know the answer, but it doesn't go both ways. So if you notice that there's too many square feet of glazing in the assembly area, and you want to go to assembly area number 1 and reduce it by 50%, it won't do that for you on the architectural model, will it? Because it's an architectural decision, right?
Correct.
It just doesn't go like this. You could choose.
I could
Oh,
do
you
it.
could.
We won't though. Yeah, we won't because does that create problems?
Yes.
Yes, it does. So that's a phone call, right? That's a phone call. Get on the call and say, I've got too much class here. Can we have a meeting here? So, right. So you got to be that integrated design, and that's maybe what's in my head because the engineering, the architecture combined up here. But being able to kind of deductively reason and support your intuition with data. A lot of people get confused. Intuition's better because I've done this and I have a degree in architecture, so I know how to do this. Well, that's fine and dandy, but there's also the data from the model because everything's different every single time. And you can use that to support your intuition, right? So it's two sides of the same coin. So we can start to negotiate what that needs to be. And really what it does is it shows the impact of those decisions. If you were to increase glazing even more, right, you have to be able to immediately show the owner the impact of that decision, because usually it's not necessarily the architect's decision. Sometimes it's client saying, I gotta have more views, I gotta see more glass over here, right? So there's that information. So that one's, so yeah, absolutely fascinating to kind of look and see the impact of decisions and checking the different set points, looking at diffuser heating, diffuser cooling, stuff architects aren't really exposed to, but this makes it digestible for architects to really start to see that, oh my goodness, I have 716 square feet of glazing on the south. Like, that has real impact. And we just need to understand our total impact on the building, to the state, to the planet, so on and so forth. So there's that. Load calcs. We did a demo there. And then data and AI. We'll see what I can do here. Hopefully I can make this video. So another thing, and the audio is kind of bad. I feel bad about this video. It's a little bit homemade. I didn't have time to complete it, really. So just keep that in mind.
Options of greater than 25,000 square feet can go less than 25. Can I show you more options?
No. How many print installs does the first option have?
All right, option with us 350.
Wouldn't that be great?
Installs. Are you interested in any other options?
Yes. Show me option 10.
Okay, option 10 has 375
parking stalls.
Sure, I will remove all the options with less than 375 stalls. I can also filter them further if you have other requirements or preferences.
No, show me options 2.
Option 2 has 380 parking stalls, 26,000 square feet of hotel floor area, 8,900 square feet of commercial, and
Sorry.
2,800 square feet of office.
What else can you tell me about this option?
Option 2 is 130 feet tall, 95 feet wide, 150 feet long, and fits within a setback back of the site.
Okay, favorite this option.
Great, this option has been favorited.
So that I actually have to prompt her.
Shortlisted favorites.
Fine, I have arranged the options
There
according
she
to selection
picked
by
it.
favorites.
I think this is the option I want. Please call the design team for me.
And she can call a phone. I just couldn't get it working in time for the video. So,
Wow. Is this
um,
for real?
yeah.
Okay.
so that's things like that. So, very interesting concepts behind this. How do we implement this? That's I shouldn't even be able to like do this, right? So that's a lot of fun to be able to take on that kind of challenge and to be able to cycle through information like that. So conclusion, I won't go over all this stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff. This is how we can implement it. It looks highly technical. We can get into relationship values between all kinds of tables and values from outside the project and pull those in. We can do a whole bunch of different metrics. Can it be live streamed? As of April of this year, yes, to a certain degree. I can explain that later. I get this question a lot. Can my data in Excel be edited inside of Power BI? Directly, not so much. Indirectly, yes, I can create columns and create subsets of data inside Power BI. But then the question becomes, if you want to change it in Excel, you probably have the Excel file open anyway. So just change it in that and it creates less confusion. If you have problems, this is a solution for a common problem that comes up. Dynamo's free, Power BI is free, or the pro version is a whopping $10 a month per user, so it's not exactly a huge cost. We can tie this to our Azure network. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of cool other data visualizations. We have a couple Tableau licenses. I'm willing to give up mine. If anybody wants to give that a try, I think Domo's free, Gephi's free, and then Mandrill for Dynamo. It's a little bit more BIM. And then here's a couple resources that I've been reading. I read a lot of books. And then, of course, some other information up there, how to develop on Amazon Alexa is the first link, Power BI, Flux, and all that fun stuff. So was this information useful and cause you to think? Will you put thought into action? And what's the plus delta for you today? What's the change for you today? Right? You don't have to answer that. I'm just kind of thinking, it's a lot of stuff that I slammed through and not a lot of time. So thanks everybody. That's it.
I already have 2 projects that
Okay.
I'm interested in. One of them is, the other one is.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm gonna point.
Yeah,
We have
exactly.
point at these guys.
Yeah.
Do this.
Good at, yeah.
No, but the second one, seriously, is that fascinating. Because we are about to do this plan where literally there's nothing is off the table. So we can do hotel, student housing, residential, commercial, industrial, and all kinds of different mixes of big site. So that's perfect.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
right now, poor Joseph was doing, everything one at a time. And it was frustrating because he goes, okay, if we don't put a hotel here, we put student housing here, then you have to do the number of beds instead of the number of keys. And what is the right proportion for a
Exactly.
building that's a student housing versus a hotel? Like that over and over again. And it's very frustrating because it goes so slowly. But with this thing, your whatever you call it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Your
Yeah.
modeling
Yeah.
sounds like it's going to be really much easier and much faster.
Right. So my kind of quote, it's actually in the book. So I also had a handout for that Toronto presentation. That the page inside is actually the interview that they did with me for that conference tomorrow. But I'm quoted in there saying that the leaders of tomorrow are going to be the movers of data, right? So, and using that data to create enhanced architectural space and really enhance the user experience, right? So that's what's happening. So processes that used to take, weeks, even months, now take seconds. And so now there is something to be said about speed. So the first thing they invented was for the car was the engine, right? The second thing they invented were the brakes, right? So speed is one thing, but I think what we need to chase is accuracy, right? I think we see a lot of speed and we can cycle through a lot of options, but are they accurate? So that's what I think the real winning game plan is here. So, yeah. Yeah, and then like I said, I'll leave that handout. Several of the offices, I've mailed one to each. Basically, go step by step how to make what I've made, and then some further thoughts and resources because that's always important. So yeah.
So are you holding other sessions? Like, do you do any training sessions?
No, it's just I try to do this once a month over lunch hours, over a staggered lunch hour. So we've actually shifted to Mountain Time. We were on West Coast time because there was such a big mass of the audience. And that's kind of a little bit what my presentation is tomorrow. It was 80% West Coast. So it made sense. Just let me take a late lunch at 2 o'clock and call in and record this and do this. But now that we've gained quite a bit more, now it's only 50% on Pacific time. And then the rest of the group makes up 50%. So I want to shift that hour to Mountain Standard Time. That way, West Coasters can take an early lunch, Mountain Time's on time, and I only have to take a late lunch. And then the stragglers kind of on the East Coast, it's the smallest represented ratio of people. They have to take the late lunch. So that way we can get the biggest group. So I believe.
So you send out a meeting invite? Because I don't think I've seen them before.
Oh, yeah. So it's absolutely not exclusive group. It's an inclusive group. It's really word of mouth. And we had about 150 subscribers internally so far. So that's about 12% of the firm. That's, again, at least interested in this at a bird's eye level. I have at least one person in probably every office that wants to take this on and tackle it. So there's a local champion, if you will, that's willing to really dive deep into this. Not everybody is. It's really technical. And it doesn't look like fun unless you're like me and you think it's fun, right? So.
Is that you, Oscar, for now?
There you go. So
it looks like it's fun.
And it's very interesting that I've never had to appoint it. I've never had to say you have to be the champion for this. I think very often we have people who get assigned to be a champion for something that maybe they don't want to be a champion of. So again, being that it's an inclusive group, the person usually pops up. In this case, Osma popped up here. So yeah.
And so who are her counterparts in California?
California is somewhat new. I want to say LA. We've lost one of our BIM managers that was a big proponent of this. I don't think anybody's replaced that person yet. Yeah, I don't doubt that there are some. Once the group grows more, so we're expected to grow about 12% next year, and then hopefully through some wiggling of the budget, get some increased fabrication equipment. Seattle already has some, and then taking our data-driven designs and fabricating them, at least at a prototype level. Okay, cool. Are there any other questions for those viewing? I've got a lot of people. So, okay, if not, we're going to call the meeting. Let me make sure that there's no chat window. So, all right, thanks everyone.
She means that very affectionate.
Yeah.
Looks like it.